All the way up there?
Well, but they would get on the line with the people waiting to get in to pick up the kid or real.
Yeah, you have to either get here at 2:45. I can give you a ride up to.
All right, okay.
Yeah. I told Dad where to park. I told Dad, I thought I'd give Dad the trip and so there's a second building.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you get here and like.
Dad, no joke. I thought Mom and Dad were gonna get here in the middle of my presentation because of the traffic. I was like already seeing it happen. And y'all being like,
No, we got here at 2:30. Yeah, I was gonna say, we left really early too, so we parked.
Have your attention for the announcements, please. Reminder, if you missed either the honor ceremony and you were supposed to receive an
we're
award,
just an
or
art.
if you missed the honor of your
Our
award.
teacher left early and we
your
finished, so we were like, let's go run through it one more time and then you can get
Our
changed.
only club meeting is Chinese Club, 12:30 in the lecture hall. Also tomorrow we'll have college representatives from Arkansas State University at 12:30 in the Music Commons.
Why does,
Thank you and have a great afternoon.
you have one apostrophe and harm have two?
Okay. All right.
Because Mom didn't review it. I usually ask to review everything before it goes out.
Oh.
You can come in now. You can sit on my family.
English.
Yeah.
Are
you up here?
Yeah.
He signed up for like
Good.
very
Let me see here.
literature classes and everything.
Yeah.
So, yesterday over there. Sit down. Sophia and Alan, they were both on,
Hello.
Did he make sure?
Yeah, I
he said
see
he's
myself.
getting it.
Wait, I kind of want to see.
It should be from that over there. Like
Yeah, so this is the, is
So this is where I'll be.
that good?
Mhm.
You look? You like that? My hair all right?
your hair looks great, Thomas.
Okay, who's up here? We've
I'm
got
getting
Miss
a wall.
King, Miss Cass, Mr. Vaughn.
No, you might need another chair.
Yeah.
Hard
There's
set.
a way to change that typo right now.
Oh, yeah.
I did
Yeah,
change
you gotta
it.
say, yeah, well, this should, if you should either gotta have this single there, yeah, it looks odd, doesn't it? Yeah.
They silly said something.
Look,
Yes,
there's
it's bugging
3 here and there's 1 here.
Yeah, it's really bugging.
The third one got added instead of being added at the top.
I think what happened when you changed that,
Oh.
yeah. Let's take a. Adam, how are you, sir? Come on in, stand well.
Come on.
Wait. Before we get- Okay, does that look good? Wait for it to load.
Yeah, you'll have to reload it on the other thing.
No,
It's part of the invitation that you.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's good.
You got it, you got
We're
it.
going, we're getting.
I have this title. I did
Josh, how we doing, sir?
Are you staying? You're staying. Oh, yay. Oh my gosh. Oh.
But
I told her
not
I'm so excited. I've never seen it before. Oh my gosh. We were in here at 7 hours.
Wait, the stream might go.
What? Oh, there's one person online. Where's Neely?
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Vaughn. Yes.
Kill it, that's gonna be great. Yeah, we've got.
Yay.
Thank you
so much.
Hey,
Macy.
Alicia.
Hey.
You gotta do
Charlotte, make sure you send a reminder, whenever you guys are going, remind you the night before, the afternoon before, just get some notes.
Should I do it right now?
Whatever, just,
Are we still good to practice tonight?
I'm okay, come back, I may not be that
Is that
time.
okay?
Whatever you want, I work for you.
I'll
You're the boss.
bring you ice cream. Do you want ice cream?
No.
Do you want anything you want?
I'll be fine.
Charlotte, are you coming tomorrow morning?
Mom doesn't understand, we work for them, Mom. That's
They're
not
bringing
fair.
you ice cream?
I thought you would try the other day.
I know.
I love you, so you brought him a shot, but you didn't bring me a shot.
I heard you were walking this morning. Guys,
But maybe I
what are you
wanted- maybe I
walking?
wanted to turn on like this, right?
You want Miss King?
Next time for sure. I thought you like lattes. That's my favorite.
Well, Anthony was trying to which drink it is.
What do you want, Miss King?
She wants cash.
She wants cash. What next time you was wedding? Yeah.
So we've got Castleberry and Parsons.
Hey, Anna.
The Queen Prim is here.
Queen Prim.
Wait, Allison Hood, so it's.
Oh, dude.
You got Allie.
I'm taking a picture on.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do the typical group pick after and then family pick. Our family here at grandkids is awesome. Thank you guys for coming. Anyone want to sit down, stay? I'm gonna need this. This is for Molly. Put it up here. Oh, look who's here. Anna, are you staying?
Come on, say.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm just filling out my water.
Okay, okay.
Oh, wait, I'll put it on there.
Pretend like you're talking.
I like to stay.
Okay.
That's a small face, so yes.
Yes.
That's right.
That's what I got dressed. Oh, thanks. My mom got it for me for just for this. We went on it, different shopping. What?
Are you looking at anything?
Oh, yeah. The live's already going, so that's just. Is it Neely? I hope it's Neely. Don't worry, it's not like right here. It's further.
It's like.
Oh, that's it.
Hi, Miss Cass.
Hello.
Like all the others. Oh, okay, cool.
We got you in the center next to Miss Cass. Anyone needs to reference a copy? I've got the copy box right here. Okay, we're 1 minute. All right, Bones, one side. Welcome to day 2 of the Senior Honors Thesis Defenses. Today we have 2 outstanding presenters, Allison Dearnley and Molly Williams. Should be an entertaining day and very enlightening. And again, I think it's always special, personally, a student that I've not had in class before, that's made it through that 9th and 10th and 11th grade year without a topics class. To get them the senior year, it's really special. And I always feel like, no disrespect to Josh there, but I mean, Josh, like senior year, I've had my fill of Josh Diaz. And, having a fresh new face, someone that, is able to take a class and kind of, have that experience, it's always really special. So Allison has been just phenomenal work with this year, and it's been a real pleasure to get to know her. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Allison Dearnley.
Thank you, Mr. Toppich, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allison Dearnley, and thank you for coming to my Senior Honors Thesis Defense. The title of my thesis is The Hypocrisy and Do No Harm, which will analyze how the for-profit healthcare system prioritizes generating money rather than actual patient care. So many Americans understand healthcare in America is subpar. However, the extent to which depends person to person. In the United States, the idea of paying for healthcare is extremely normalized. However, it is not a normal phenomenon for how developed the United States is. The amount citizens pay for healthcare in the United States and the quality of healthcare does not reflect in the quality of care itself. Overall, the importance of my thesis is that the for-profit foundation depersonalizes and destabilizes healthcare, and citizens deserve better care. The United States spends 20% of the gross domestic product, or GDP, on healthcare, with trillions spent annually. However, healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy in America. Therefore, the amount spent doesn't correlate with the status and quality of healthcare. A sampling of the books used in my thesis include Curable by Travis Christofferson, which I used in my first and second chapter. This helped me introduce concepts and build a better understanding. Overdiagnosed I used in my second chapter. It is written by a collection of doctors, including Dr. H. Gilbert Welch. This helped me offer statistics as well as a physician's point of view. Make America Healthy Again inspired my entire third chapter, so I will be referencing it later. I also utilized many academic sources, but 3 in particular that really helped me include the first of all, a Stanford article by Elizabeth Rosenthal. This was a recent article, and it helped me with present updates of the insurance system. The Peter G. Peterson Foundation offered me many charts and visuals, and last of all, Superbugs by Colleen Cahill helped me with the conclusion of my second chapter, policy recommendations, and also was a modern source I could use. I'd also like to say a special thank you to Pankra Mathur and Olivia Morgan Snyder. These were 2 interviews I used in my thesis, and they were crucial to the quality of it. Both of these people worked in the healthcare industry. Dr. Mathur and his wife discussed the impacts of the healthcare system, particularly on the workers themselves. Olivia Morgan Snyder helped me out with the patient's perspective and how she discussed how the patient interaction was faulted due to the offset ratio of physicians to patients. In order to understand the present situation of healthcare, it is crucial to look at the history. So healthcare started off in the 1800s with the practice of cleanliness. In 1847, the American Medical Association was founded. In the 1900s, the race for medical innovation began. The United States and many other countries began to race in medical innovation. They were all trying to get it done first and be the first to discover things. Therefore, we start to see government-funded healthcare starting here. In the mid-1900s, insurance began. In Waco, Texas, with the Blue Cross plans costing $5 a day, insurance started off with a motive to do well. They encouraged everyone to join this, and overall, they wanted everyone to be able to have access to insurance. However, this all changed in 1950 with Aetna and Cigna, who provided competition. With the new competition, the motive changed to be more for profit and less to help patients. An example of this change of motive is with the insulin patent. 4 physicians discovered the insulin patent in the early 1900s. 2 of them refused to put their name on it and the other two sold it for $1 in 1923. However, insulin grew into $7.3 billion industry in 2005 and $21 billion industry in 2013. Since then, minimal change has occurred to help the patent, even compared to what it is worth and goes for in other countries. In 1965, Medicare and Medicaid were enacted. This was for the elderly and people under the poverty line. Modern day, more people than ever are covered by these two things and ever before. So far, the United States sounds on par with other healthcare systems, and it was. However, in 1980s, a sharp turn occurred. Medical innovation increased, the need for healthcare increased. However, economic stability decreased. So this created a correlation with health and wealth. So the people who were more healthy were able to have better health. You may see this trend as the United States in the 1980s, as compared to other other countries, was on par. However, the spending continued to increase while the life expectancy at birth decreased. This is true for life expectancy at full length as well. We started off in the middle with other countries, however, fell off as the years progressed from 1980. So with the subpar rankings, one may conclude that we were underfunding healthcare. However, the United States average citizen per capita spends more than 2 times rather than other ones. The United States citizen spends around $12,000 on healthcare. However, in comparison to other countries, the average would be around $5,000. Some high-ranking countries include Belgium, the UK, and the Netherlands, and they spend $5,000 to $6,000. Once again, you may see the lower rankings in healthcare and health status, quality of primary care, and quality of acute care. We fall behind again, so with lower quality care at a higher price, it's important to look into the financial implications of healthcare. First and foremost is the healthcare administration. These are the people running companies and owning businesses, and they're simply self-profiting off the revenue. Another outlet for financial implications would be wasted. So 30% of every cent, 30 cents of every dollar in healthcare healthcare spent in hospitals is wasted. Productive waste stems from inefficient production of products, and allocative waste is the loss of profit of producing items versus their actual cost. Another outlet would be research. So the United States is a leading country in cancer and cardiovascular research. These are the 2 top leading causes of death in America, so this research is essential, especially for helping future populations. So with patient care, another outlet for money would be in defensive medicine. So defensive medicine is defined as excess care to fully ensure diagnosis and prevent lawsuits against malpractice issues. So defensive medicine occurs because in order to avoid malpractice issues, which are also a prevalent issue in the United States. This is mainly due to the offset ratio of patients to doctors in hospitals. Therefore, there's more of a standard set diagnosis rather than personalized care. So overdiagnosis occurs when one is diagnosed with something without life-altering effects. This also, again, occurs due to the patient-to-doctor ratio and is a main place of spending. This is, once again, an example of the depersonalization of medicine and leads into overprescription. Overprescription is a consequence of overdiagnosis, and many Americans will turn to medication rather than actual lifestyle changes, which is another reason for the overprescription. This is a very national phenomenon and normalized. Pharmaceutical companies are also for-profit, and therefore with multiple for-profit industries trying to make profit, their citizen is the one who is left with excess health care bills. The most commonly prescribed drugs, overprescribed drugs, are antidepressants, opioids, and PPIs, proton pump inhibitors. These have the potential to help, but are frequently abused. Particularly with opioids, 13.4 million out of 91.8 million people prescribed opioids abuse them. This phenomenon reflects the depersonalization of the healthcare system with inadequate patient care. A main danger of overprescription would be superbugs, which is built-up antibiotic resistance. In 2050, superbugs are predicted to have more deaths than cancer. With each prescription, there are side effects. With those side effects, people tend to turn to more prescriptions, leading to a cascade effect, thus creating a buildup of prescriptions. One policy recommendation to help this phenomenon would be prescription checkups. Similar to doctor checkups, people would go in and have a checkup to make sure that every prescription they are taking is efficiently used and needed. So, taking a step back and looking at the effects of the for-profit healthcare system as a whole on the population instead of direct patient care, it's important to realize that healthcare workers and patients alike both want to be healthy. However, there are several factors from the existing system on the community and population that are impacting many individuals as a whole that are not directly seen. So, for example of this, the most basic solution would be preventative healthcare. And this would be people in our lives making decisions and lifestyle changes in order to increase their care. This may be divided into three categories of immunization, access, and chronic disease prevention. Immunization would be preventing future diseases as well as helping those who are immunocompromised not receive diseases. Access would be to plans and information as well as their own health knowledge. Chronic disease prevention is also completely necessary, for a lot of money is spent in research and by people in healthcare on research in chronic disease prevention, as well as it is part of the two top leading deaths in America. However, chronic disease prevention is much more difficult than it may seem, for the trifecta of causes of bad diets, lack of exercise, and smoking are all very prevalent in America. However, these cause detrimental health concerns. Unhealthy diets and lack of exercise are more common in America than the other top countries in healthcare. Thus, it is more difficult for Americans to overall be healthy. And so some journalists and experts blame Americans for this phenomenon. So back to my literature review. Nicole Safir, one of the top medical journalists, blames America and say they are at fault. She says, and I quote, "I don't think it's reasonable that many Americans are being pushed into a subpar system because individuals aren't being held accountable for their lifestyle decisions." Despite the fact that many experts agree, this is a very unfair assumption. The people concluding these don't realize the health impacts on the lower income communities, which struggle to overall have better access and better control over their lifestyle decisions. In lower income communities, access, time, and safety are a lot larger of factors, therefore making it harder to overall have better health. As you may see on this chart, food deserts start off, which lead to detrimental effects, thus overall leading to more chronic diseases. Even further, with less options available, there are more chronic diseases caused. Chronic disease prevention and preventative healthcare thus must start by prioritizing lower income communities. With more preventative care overall, there will be a less unhealthy population. Overall, there will be better healthcare and a healthier population with this. So, after extensive research, my first policy recommendation would be lowering chronic diseases causes, which will lower the chronic disease population, therefore helping overall patients. Due to the fact that with less patients sick, there will be less patients in hospitals, therefore balancing out that ratio more of patients to doctors. So, as previously mentioned, a large portion of the spending goes into research. So by redirecting this to focus on the future population instead of worrying about the future ones, by helping the future ones, the current ones, is essential to helping overall healthcare to create healthier future generations as well. So the most known recommendation for the healthcare system would be increased government funding. Many people disagree with this, however, due to the repercussions of it, such as increased taxes and job turnovers. The United States is the only country in the OECD without universal health care. The current system has been in place for a long time as well, and a lot of people are afraid of changing it. However, government funding has become necessary with 47.2 million people uninsured. 20,000 people die annually due due to being uninsured as well. Statistically, this population as well is less likely to go and receive care when necessary in emergency situations. Overall, they also have a 40% higher mortality rate because of the fact they're uninsured. So after extensive research and reading, I concluded that increased coverage must be necessary if there's a greater population of Americans that are sick than healthy and still millions that are uninsured. We are living in a wealthy country where change can be possible and made. It's the responsibility of us as citizens to look out for each other and overall increase health in America. This change is necessary and is not limited to, but must include, increased preventative care, further help with lower income communities, prescription check-ins with medication, and increased government funding. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
If you could restart the project, it's the fall of 2022, what additional interviews would you conduct that might help you gain different perspectives?
I was hoping to interview one of the lead hospital administrations, but I did not get the chance to do that. I tried, I reached out, but I didn't get anybody reach back.
What about anything from the insurance business side, the insurance companies?
Yes, I think looking into insurance companies more would also have been very interesting. But I tried to cover a lot more. I wasn't very narrow. And I remember my committee actually in the beginning told me this, but I was just like, oh, I want to cover it all. And I got really excited. But yes, if I could have narrowed down more, I think that would have been helpful.
A second question, I'll turn it over to Mr. Vaughn. The impact of lawsuits, malpractice, how does that impact the economics of healthcare? Did you run across much on that aspect of it?
Well, so with malpractice issues, that is due to the for-profit foundation, they're trying, businesses are trying to make money basically. So because of malpractice issues, that's where all of the overdiagnosis and all of that started because of the malpractice issues.
Trying to cover themselves and such, okay.
Did that answer your question?
Kind of, I think, to an extent, I think that creates a larger kind of bureaucracy and layers in the system too that makes it problematic and, again, more costly. I think doctors are always fearful of that aspect too. Mr. Vaughn.
When you were talking about preventative care, one of your segments was immunization. And I hate to be the person who brings up COVID, but I think this is the most, not just the most recent, but one of the best examples of the problem of correlation between immunization and cost problems, right? And the burden that those who are not immunized are putting on the system. Would you advocate for requiring immunizations like that? Or do you think there are other ways we could hold people accountable with that specific segment?
I think looking into other ways, particularly with COVID, would be necessary just because, so the COVID immunization, I just know that, so I work at a place with many nurses at my job, and a lot of them are fearful of the COVID vaccine due to the mRNA in it. I don't really necessarily understand all the biology behind it, but I do understand that it just recently came out and a lot of people are fearful of it. So I do not think forcing it would be, I don't know, just with the new vaccine, I'm a little bit nervous to talk about that. One of the past ones may be, but so I would be looking into different ways.
As your local biologist, I'll add that mRNA vaccination research has been going on for decades. And it
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
really that new.
Yeah.
It's just the general public didn't know about it. And so it sounded all new and like something they just made up, but we've actually been doing it for a long, long time.
I actually
Okay.
would add to that I think because it did get fast-tracked through the testing and stuff, I think that was a little bit, it made everybody really nervous because other vaccines weren't. But when other vaccines have been introduced along from polio to smallpox, whatever, there were equal populations that didn't want to get it and they were scared of it. This one just happened to be turned into a political issue, I think.
Yes.
I think there's a tie-in there too, in terms of holding accountable. You talked about government funding and being uninsured. And to me, insurance is one of the huge factors here. Um, uh, um, uh, I don't know quite how to ask this, but is it simply a matter of offering more government funding for insurance to happen? Or would you advocate for a system that completely circumvents insurance at all?
Well, so my first point, preventative care, I know I keep coming back to this, but it's really essential because by overall decreasing the amount of people that are sick in America, that will overall really decrease the price and cost of healthcare. So
Okay,
knowing
yeah,
what
yeah,
insurance
good.
would be best and most cost benefit would be very hard to project, because my first policy recommendation I'd want to happen would be the increase preventative care to decrease the amount of people that are sick. So
Yeah.
then with a lower amount of people that need it, it would be difficult to say
Sure.
how much, and what would be best.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a really key component here. Last question. I give you lots of credit here because I think this feels like a really urgent topic. Strong sense of argument in your paper. And in that, what would you say to someone who just says, well, it is what it is. The costs are what they are, and we're just going to have to deal with it. Would you argue for them that there needs to be a stronger response, and why and how?
A stronger response,
To actually make a change and not just say, well, the costs are what they are.
well, I think the statistics kind of speak for themselves, where it's a lot of people who say that don't actually realize the impact on the lower income communities and the impact on the uninsured population. And so, I mean, as citizens and people and human beings, honestly, we morally, it's correct to help other people.
So I have some comments and some questions. First, congratulations on finishing such a big project. That's a big undertaking. And I want to praise you for your organization throughout the school year. You were very, very organized, both with your writing and getting drafts to us to edit. And thank you for your grace all the times I missed my deadline, returning my drafts to you. I appreciate that. So a couple questions. With all the many, many books and journal articles out there about the American healthcare system, what was your plan of approach to how to narrow the field? I can't imagine if you Google American healthcare, how many millions of things come up on Google Scholar.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my first chapter took super duper long to come out, because that's basically what I did. Was I just was scouring the internet, finding all different kinds of articles and sources. And so then Curable really helped me with build an understanding and a foundation of okay, this is kind of where I want to go at, and narrow down the areas, I guess.
Okay.
And then I just I don't know, my binder, my first chapter is very large. And then I just got better at dissecting and realizing, okay, this place has good articles. The National Library of Medicine, I used a bit.
Second question. So we have a lot of new technologies in the last decade or two, like DNA sequencing that's becoming much cheaper and easier. And, researchers are developing a lot of personalized medicine that addresses your specific, genes and such.
Oh.
So do you think with the for-profit insurance system here in the US, that's going to be a help or a hinder? Is it going to become something that, insurance companies refuse to cover? And, if you're not of a high income family, you don't get that personalized healthcare? Or I'm asking you to see the future here. Or do you foresee that it's going to become, standard practice for us all to have our DNA sequenced so that our primary care physicians can tailor medicine to us, which might help on that preventative end?
Yes. So for sure, off the bat, that's definitely, if this is becoming more and more common, it's going to go into the correlation with health and wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the wealthier will be receiving the more DNA sequenced care and medicine towards them. I don't necessarily see it happening just for everyone. And I think that would be lower on the list of priorities, if I'm being honest.
All right, last question, and then I'll let Ms. Cass take over. So we've talked about, the lack of access to healthcare and preventative care in regions that are predominantly low income or rural or minority communities. So what ideas do you have for how healthcare workers or educators that are in these communities can help these folks realize there are opportunities, like I talked to you about, WIC and being on Medicaid when I was younger and such. How do we get the word out to people? Any ideas to help them with that preventative care?
It definitely starts, I would say, with high schoolers. I mean, I would say with children, but that's just too young. And so that's a main reason I took on this project was I was like, I'm 18 years old and I don't know like anything about healthcare and I'm about to be an adult. So definitely starting with like high schoolers and education in the system, understanding like the various aspects of healthcare and, different structures and plans.
Cool, very nice.
Well, that leads right into my question is like, what specific preventative healthcare measures do you think that we need to start with?
I mean, the trifecta of chronic diseases are smoking, bad diets, and lack of exercise. And so just encouraging overall outdoors time and going outside more tobacco awareness, especially with e-cigarettes nowadays, and then, increasing better diets and overall health. So that would just go into just showing statistics, I guess, and that may end up being like allotting more time for students to get lunch or something like that and be like, we care about your health.
Allison, congratulations on doing a wonderful job.
Thanks.
I loved the layout of your slides, your title. Congratulations on conducting some interviews. Good job.
Thank you.
So how much of a role do you think the big pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies play in kind of maintaining status quo as far as, the for-profit medical industry is concerned? How much of a role, perhaps in lobbying, do they play in keeping things the way they are?
I think they play a very prominent role, and they're also kind of undermined because whenever people look at healthcare, they don't immediately go to the pharmaceutical companies. They'll be like, oh, like doctors, hospitals. And so that's I was trying to include it all. But yes, insurance companies also are one of the main factors for the profit because they're the ones who are kind of controlling it all. So.
And kind of along the same lines of that, you mentioned, of course, preventative care quite frequently. Do you think that the for-profit nature of our healthcare system limits the way in which we, go about understanding, preventative care and focusing on that? Because, if we were to cure things like, cancer or diabetes or whatever, work on preventing them, then there would be less of a need for those doctors. Do you think that, we don't focus as much on prevention because of the for-profit?
Oh, for sure, yes. Because also that's the reasoning behind the overdiagnosis and the overprescribing is so instead of encouraging lifestyle changes and encouraging various preventative measures, instead it's prescriptions. And so that's typically how the different for-profit organizations all create money from each other.
Should we be incentivizing good behavior? Should the government say, if you are not overweight, we're going to give you some sort of financial incentive? If you don't smoke, financial incentive, lower insurance rates. Should we be going that far? There's already a lot of corporations that are doing this.
I would honestly disagree against that. There's many factors that go into it besides just, people's choices, as I stated, people in lower income communities, there's, less options. There's less access to healthier food. It may not be safe to go outside and go for a run just in the community you live in. And so, no, I don't think financial incentives would be beneficial.
I'm going to open it up to the audience. You can pick some questions from the audience for the next.
Okay,
5 or
Anna,
6
I saw
minutes.
your hand first.
So I don't know if your research led you to this or if you did not have time to include this, but I know since our health system is for profit, with increased government funding, did you maybe look at the other side of that and how maybe that can de-incentivize doctors to like do good work, like the opposite of over prescribing, but if all doctors are maybe making the same amount of money, would that de-incentivize them from like digging deeper and doing better work?
I think that doctors are less of the problem, and I think most healthcare physicians I've discussed with overall agree that like it's the system's problem and it's less the doctor's problem. And I think that doctors would continue to do their work even with increased government funding, like to the best of their ability. Like,
I really liked how you talked about food deserts. It's a really like interesting thing to bring up. Like,
oh, thank you.
issue. Could you expand like what do you think like any possible solutions to like the food desert problem?
That would just be, I would have to say, like increasing the various options in those lower income areas, such as like there's just more prominent bad choices. I don't even like bad choices such as like fast food and places like that, like less gyms available in those communities. So just increasing the real estate of that. So, okay, Mom.
So one interesting, just say, so, you know, I used to teach at Central, and that whole Central High neighborhood is a huge food desert. There are more liquor stores and convenience stores than anything with healthy food. But K Hall and Sons is like the best. They not only have a store where they cook fresh food every day, and they have fresh produce in a neighborhood that doesn't have access to that. They also now have a food truck, and they literally can go around the neighborhood and try to help people that don't have access to things like, I take fruit. Things like a banana every morning, you know. So there are creative ideas out there. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte.
I know that you didn't get to cover this in your thesis by now, or in your defense, but I know in your thesis you brought up the prime example of antibiotic resistance and how we overprescribe antibiotics in the American healthcare system. And I was wondering if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that and explain that with an example.
Okay, so yes, there's like an increase. So with all the prescriptions taken and the increased drug use, basically people begin to build up resistance to them. And so that's where I discussed that like in 2015, that's projected to have more deaths, is that people will be unable to take the medication or have built up too much resistance. Yeah. Mr. Hagerman?
I have a question. So, in your research, did you ever find that the media plays a role at all in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually wrote a little section on that. So the social media influence, I discussed how there is overall like a lot of misinformation online about this, and there's just health misinformation in general, just on social media and various platforms. This may be from like influencers promoting products falsely, or just false advertising, and that's also a prevalent factor. Also, just with having a younger generation and overall generation, there's a lot of fake news out on the internet because people can post anything really. And so that's been also a large factor into detrimental health issues, is that people are unaware of what's healthy due to the false information. Yes. Did you have your hand up, Mom?
I was just gonna question on your food deserts, because the city of Little Rock has worked really hard. We do have several food deserts here, and they finally got Dollar General because Dollar General was in those areas to agree to have fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. But my question is those markets, are those people even gonna buy them? Or are they all gonna just go bad because they're highly perishable, because people in those food deserts haven't been necessarily educated or have the desire, because Little Debbie cakes taste better, and that's one of the best things that sells at, a Dollar General. And I'm like, are people really going to buy the fresh fruits and vegetables there?
Well, that's where the access and education and awareness comes in, especially with high school kids, and that's where I promoted it most. Also, just it's also an issue in lower income communities, as you said, with the Little Debbie cakes, because lower income communities, there's lower income schools. And so at these schools, they need more funding than areas in like higher income communities. So these schools that need more funding will need it's been a large phenomenon that some food companies will go and advertise there and then in order to get funding. So the advertisements there are typically fast food or little Debbie cakes. And so that leads into people making worse decisions.
Did anyone else grow up in an elementary school where Wendy's provided lunch once a week? And you wrote the song McDonald's, fried chicken and pizza. I mean, we were all that. lunch some days. And it was all about training kids to want that kind of food. Yeah, I've got other catchy sayings.
Yes, Ms. Parks. Any questions? Oh, Anna.
This is just, if there's anything you didn't get to touch on in your defense that you want to elaborate on or that you thought was a really important part of your thesis that you didn't have time for your defense.
Not sure. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Mom and Dad, right here. We'll do the committee too.
Good job, Ally.
Great. So we're gonna do this committee first. Influence the and then we'll get the family second. That's the first slide. So how do we, oh, you got it. We were doing it yesterday. We were splitting like a couple of the committee on each side of the.
I kind of want to be like behind this. I feel like.
Yeah.
Will be okay?
Well,
Get
I'm
on.
trying to get the title right. Yes.
Aw.
Okay.
I'll send them.
Committee on this side then? Oh,
Where do I go?
we want this, we want
Yeah,
the
let me
slide.
be able to see the slide.
Okay,
All right,
so.
I'm short, I'll be short.
Right here.
How are you?
Wait, this is not, we're failing.
Is that better?
Is this good?
Do you want the title on it?
Yeah.
We can.
Is that it?
You know, just a little bit taller. Yeah, the other way.
That one?
One, two, three.
Okay. Okay, family.
I left you my notes because if you're like me, you forget everything that was asked.
Oh, that's so
Yes, you did it. Okay.
Mom, you're getting,
So how do we want to
what,
do
Mom,
this?
you're in the thing.
Angela, you want?
You're fine. Yeah.
She got it.
She's
Mama,
also
you wanna
called up.
thumbprint it? Do your thing to, and I'll do that one.
Okay. You got the slides? You want?
All right, right up here, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now me or Mom, rather one. I take a few, try to get, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow, let's do it. I would do that too.
You're up front here.
Ollie?
The honey badger. That's me. But hilarious. My daughter, like, I have all the emotions, all feelings. And I'm like, so I might just have like, I need some, not my husband